Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And you might notice I don't have my Funny Wine Girl sign behind me because I'm on location. Yes, we're taking it up a notch, sort of, or we're trying to. Today is kind of special, a little bit different. I'm outside of my living room. And so hopefully the recording will sound good. I'm out here at Johnson College and I'm here with Dr. Katie Leonard, the president of Johnson College, and we spoke for the podcast a couple of years ago. It's actually going to be 2 years in August. And so for those of you folks who are listening, go to YouTube if you want to see. The backdrop isn't as exciting as the story will tell you about it. But if you want to see Dr. Katie Leonard and myself, you can head to the YouTube channel. But so this week, I just thought it was a good time to catch up with Dr. Leonard and see what's been going on at Johnson College. I live in Scranton, and Johnson College is probably less than a mile from my home. So I have been eagerly watching the construction of a new building that they've had going on. And so I was like, I think it's time to check in with Dr. Katie, see what's going on. And I have a lot that I want to hear about from Dr. Leonard. But let's start, if you don't mind. So 2 years, almost 2 years is a long time. You've had a lot. But we just took a tour of your new building, and it's Ideal Saldi?
Ideal Saldi Hall.
Saldi Hall. It is gorgeous, you guys. If you ever go to Shifts, and if you're a true Scrantonian, you know where Shifts is, get the meat or something. I don't know. That's what people tell me. They have good meats. It's right across the street, and you will not miss this gorgeous building. Like I said, every time I drive by, I think it's so cool. It's so modern. I just got a tour. It is really wild, and I love this idea that things are open. Like you can see the pipes, the heating, the HVAC, and that because that's what your students learn here, and that's what they go on to do. And I love that concept. But wherever you want to start, if you don't mind, just sharing a little bit about this building, what it means to Johnson College, and all of that.
So I think first and foremost, I can't mention this building without mentioning the individual that it's named after. So you talked about Ideal Saldi. He was a 1939 graduate of Johnson College from one of our original programs, machining. He went on to have a fabulous career. He had 18 patents of his own technology. He helped invent some of the first technology that went into the first digital watch. So as that has advanced, and when you think about our smart watches and Fitbits and all of those items, he had a hand in some of that original technology. And he's somebody that when I started at the college, I started in alumni relations. And he was one of the first alumni that I reached out to. And he was just very generous with his time and his talent. And then he was our first alumni to donate $1 million to Johnson College. So the building is named after him. And he really wanted us to, showcase everything that Johnson College was about. So as we were thinking about the design, it was really important that we not just show off that we're, a high, tech education facility, but I really wanted to replicate a lot of what I was seeing out in industry. So you talk about like the openness of the building. That's really what we see out in industry. I think sometimes there's still this misconception that you go into a manufacturing facility or automotive dealership, diesel, truck dealership, and it's still dingy, dark, dangerous. So we really want to just, use this building as a way to dispel some of those myths that when you walk out into industry, you will see similar buildings, just like clean lines and, just a lot of openness and lighting and, very safe. And we wanted to replicate that here. So it is our largest building project to date. We have, 4 of our labs, 6 classrooms, and every student that walks on the Johnson College campus will have the opportunity to experience this building in some way.
That's fantastic. And I believe your office is here as well. So what does it mean for you to be in a building where all the students come into? I mean, that's got to be a really personal connection, close connection.
It is. And so Ideal passed away, not this past October, but the October before. So he was with us to see the design of the building, but not the final product. So before his passing, it wasn't necessarily important to me that I have my office here, but it became very important to me after his passing. I just wanted that, so that connection to him. So to have this, have the opportunity to really be with the students. I mean, my office is sandwiched between 2 classrooms, so I see students walk by all the time. And if this past semester was any indication, productivity is probably going to go way down, because I feel like every time I see them, they wave, I run out and I start talking to them and catch up with them. And so just to hear their experiences and how it's going and how much they enjoy the building and having their lab space here, just it just means the world to all of us at Johnson College.
That's wonderful. And the building opened, so the students were in it this past spring.
Yes.
And then this coming fall, of course, they'll be here. There's classrooms, there's labs, everything. I love that idea or that feel. What does that mean, do you think, or why does that make Johnson special that here you're sandwiched in between, like you said, two classrooms? So students can see. I mean, I went to Penn State. I don't even know where the heck the president was. I guess I knew, but I didn't. I mean, I sure as hell. I was a very meek little mouse, so I would have never said a
Aw.
word, and I probably would have shriveled if I saw him. But what do you think that means for the school and for the students to have that access that they can be like, "Hey, Dr. Katie, how are
Yeah.
you?"
Well, I think it's just indicative of who we are. We're very hands-on. And I think, that starts, from me to everyone that a student is going to encounter on campus. I say at orientation, I want this to feel like this is your home. That's how I felt when I stepped on the Johnson College campus and I met the faculty for the first time. People joke about finding their purpose. And when I was standing there having conversations with the faculty, I remember distinctly remembering I'm home. That's how it felt. And I want the students to feel that way as well, that, beginning as a prospective student to a student here at Johnson College to an alum, I want them to always feel like this is a part of their journey and a part of who they are, and that they can always consider this home. So, and again, just being we're known for hands-on. So me being in the thick of it, I think it just makes everyone, I hope it makes everyone feel that much more comfortable.
Yeah, I can imagine that it does. And this is in the grand scheme of things, a little bit smaller school, more intimate. But I
Yes.
think that kind of I'm sure that plays a role in its success as well. And you're getting like a great reputation. I know I've read a lot about it that you're placing your students before they get out into the
Yes.
workforce. So what a great feeling for students to graduate and be like, yep, I got a job. That's a
Yeah.
wonderful thing to be able to tout about your school. And I'm
Thank
sure
you.
that's only continued, right?
Yeah, so we've had record enrollment now for the past 5 years, and if the data is any indication, it's going to be a sixth like coming up this fall. We're pacing very well, but along with that, we pride ourselves too in our retention rate and our graduation rate, because we can do the best job in the world recruiting students, but if they don't complete and they don't go on to graduate, then we're really not doing what we set out to do for our industry partners,
Mhm.
which is educating and producing the highest quality technicians and technologists. So that just has become very, important. And, that partnership with industry just, I think, speaks volumes. I can give an example of so many students that have had more than one job offer
Wow.
before they cross the stage at commencement. One, student recently, a female student who had her lab classes here, she was an electronic engineering technology student. She had 3 job offers, and the one that she selected, not that it wasn't necessarily about salary. She was going to be getting paid really well regardless of which one she picked, but she chose the company that not only was going to pay her well, but also said, we want you to build a Johnson College team here at this company. So again, I just think that speaks volumes for the education that they're receiving, of our faculty, and of our graduates.
That's fantastic. And I think we probably spoke about this when we talked 2 years ago, but I think the trades are really, I mean, things have shifted.
Yes.
I know I went to, Catholic school and then I went to college, and I always I say to people now wholeheartedly, if I wasn't so lazy, I'd like to go back and go to school at Johnson College, become a welder or something, because I know how lucrative the business is. There are a lot of jobs out there.
Yes.
My cousin's one son that I was at a family party a couple weeks ago, his older brother just graduated from Ohio State. His sisters both went to college. I asked him, what do you think? And he said, trade school. I said, that's great. Like before, that wasn't as highly thought of. Now it's like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, why wouldn't you? Because you're going to get out of here with a job, and a job that
Right.
pays well, as opposed to a lot of debt. And I mean, I'm not dissing the traditional colleges, but I think it's nice that this has opened up, I feel like, a much more positive light for trade schools or technology or however. And I'm sorry if trade is not the right word.
Oh
I know I
no,
don't always
it's
say the right thing.
trade and technology.
But I
Yeah.
think that's wonderful. And having a school like Johnson College that's doing so well, has to just, say, yes, this is a good thing to
Yeah.
look at when you're leaving high school.
Yeah, and I feel like, the world finally knows what we've always known, right? That is they're in demands. And even, when the economy isn't as, maybe as good as it is now, our students are still always in demand. So we've known that. I feel like COVID maybe shown a bit of a bright light on, that demand because nobody could find anybody to do anything during
Mm,
that time. And then finally it
yes.
was like, oh my gosh, how do I get a plumber or HVAC technician
Hmm.
or an auto technician? So that certainly helped, but it's always been that way here at Johnson College. And I think it's in part because of we have such outstanding faculty and the reputation of the education. I've had industry partners say if there's two equal candidates but one is a Johnson College graduate and one is from another institution, they will automatically choose the Johnson College graduate because they understand the value of the education and the degree that they're coming out of here with. And again, like you said, less debt and 2 years and they're right out into the workforce.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I probably said this last time too, but it's true, like you said during COVID, like, and that was the truth. There was like waiting lists and you couldn't, and if
Right.
that doesn't tell you how important your job is, I mean, my
Right.
gosh, I have, a degree in journalism, liberal arts degree. I do laughter yoga, comedy. These are the types of things I will tell you people. I always say, would someone ask an HVAC to come and work for free or a tree cutter?
Right.
They wouldn't, but with the liberal arts, a lot of times you're like, hey, we're going to give you a chicken sandwich when you're done. Like, okay, but I still have a light bill to pay. So
Right.
it's good that the trades are respected and people understand I can't do this. So I need someone who's
Mhm.
experienced, knowledgeable, who can do it. And I
Right.
mean, we'll always need that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our students are very focused, same thing. Like I was an English major in my undergraduate and, everyone's like, oh, like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, manage rock bands, but our students, they know, and it's, a set of skills that they can take everywhere. So we are, you
Mm.
mentioned we're small, we're very intimate, we're growing, but, whether they choose to stay here in Northeastern Pennsylvania or move somewhere else, this is a skill set that they will have for life and they will if they want work they will always have work.
Yeah. So the building is something that's huge since we talked 2 years ago. And as I said from my tour, and I'll show some photos for folks to check out on my social media, Funny Wine Girl, and on YouTube, I'll do a short video. But there's been other big things that have happened over almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Can you want to share just some of the things that have happened? I know you guys
Sure.
continue to evolve all the time.
Yeah. So just a couple of quick highlights. So we opened our first satellite campus in Hazleton.
That's big.
That was like a year plus in the making. So we have some of our programs running down there. Started classes just this past fall. So this coming fall will just be our second year offering classes down in Hazleton. But it's just been wonderful. It's a wonderful community. We're so happy to be there. I can't wait to see how it grows. We're right in the heart of the Humboldt Industrial Park. So again, I always like to say that industry is our students' campus. So they can quite literally come attend classes at the Johnson College Hazleton campus and then walk right over to, one of, whether it's an internship or their job. So
That's great.
yeah, that's been that was huge for us. We also added a 2-year aviation technology program that we run entirely at the airport. So again, we like to
Wow.
say, industry is our students' campus. So we have labs running at Simplex Industries, at the airport, and at Five Star Equipment in Dunmore. So again, students kind of get that real world, hands-on, like immersive industry experience from day one. So we're very proud of that. And we're going to be soon. We announced the addition, we're doubling the space of one side of what right now is currently called Woolworth Hall. It houses our HVAC program, which is one of our largest programs at Johnson College. Also, we have some electrical classes in there and building
Mm.
property maintenance classes, but we'll be doubling the size of the one side of Woolworth Hall
Great.
and renaming it Bracy Hall, thanks to a significant gift from the Bracy family.
That's not nothing. You got a lot going on. And a satellite campus, I mean, that's big. That's really
Yeah,
big.
yeah.
Do you see that? I mean, if you were looking into the future, is that something you'd like to continue doing with the college, adding more campuses?
So, we really look at it strategically. We want to
Mm,
make sure we're not just pulling, because we are so local, that we're not just pulling students that would come to the
mm,
main campus. But we have two mobile training trailers
Okay.
that we like to take out, particularly to areas that might not have access to technical education. So we've done a lot in Wayne County, Susquehanna County, down in Hazleton. So that's something we will continue to do. I think sometimes as higher ed, we always expect students to come to us. And I really want to make sure everyone feels like they have access to technical
Mm.
education. So that's our way of bringing technical education into the community. So we will be doing more of that over the next year or two.
What a great idea that you're bringing
Thank
it
you.
to them. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. You mentioned before, and this is one of the questions I wanted to ask you about, before we talk today. Collaboration is so big and so big to the success of the college, your students. You have wonderful relationships. It's something I always talk about. In fact, I forgot to do it at the top because this I'm totally discombobulated being outside of my. I always say at the top of every episode how I know my guests because I always
Oh,
say
that's right.
it's so
Yeah.
important to connect. It's so
Yeah.
important to collaborate. I actually don't recall. I think it was I got to know Jordan, someone who works here on campus, and of
Yes.
course I know Doug, who I wasn't going to mention, who's in the room, but we're not going to put him on camera or the microphone because
Doug's always in the corner. No one puts Doug in the corner.
Aw, poor Doug. Yes, I think I gave you a shout out last time when I said you
That's
cheated
right.
off me in French class. I'll never forget that state. Okay, maybe you didn't. Maybe you just pretended to cheat off me. But I think it's so important that we're open to connection. And I always say that. So I
Yeah.
think I was thrilled to have you on the podcast 2 years ago. And I think the connection was probably, of course, I knew Doug, but Jordan, and I'm blanking on how to say her last name, so I'm going to mess it up. But Jordan, I got to meet from other networking, and she said, "Well, I think Dr. Katie would be on." So I like bringing that up every week, how I know people and how I'm connected, because I just want to remind people that you never know. A lot of
Yeah.
times I think, and nowadays it's so tricky. We're on our phones or whatever. You might meet someone at a networking or another event and they might
Yeah.
start talking about what they do and you're like, well, I don't have interest in that, right?
Right.
But let's get to know people. Let's be curious and
Yes.
kind humans and talk to people and realize that we can maybe work together and collaborate. So
Right.
collaboration is huge for the college. Do you
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit to that and what that's meant and some of your big
Sure.
partnerships? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, right now, well, firstly, I'll say kind of like a side note just on, making connections in general, because it drives my daughter nuts, but I talk to everybody. So I'm online at the coffee shop one day and I turn around and I start talking to this, really nice woman and her daughter. And, as the conversation goes on, we somehow stumble into what she's doing for the day, what I'm doing. She realizes I work, at Johnson College. And she's like, oh my goodness, my husband's a contractor. He's wanted to reach out. If I give you his card, would you reach out to him? So again, like you just never know. And that was at the coffee
Mhm.
shop. It wasn't at someplace obvious, like a networking event or out, at a specific industry visit. That was a random, my typical Friday, let's stop and get coffee and talk to everybody. So, for me personally, that's just always been like built in. I do have that natural curiosity. I love the show Ted Lasso when he says, be curious, not judgmental. That's just something I pride myself in, like try to live my life that way. But so, bringing that into the college, we always had a really strong relationship with industry. We had a very dynamic, robust internship program. That's how, a majority of our students end up getting employed
Mm.
before they even before they graduate. But I really wanted to take that to the next level when I became president. So we started what has become industry immersion. So that's where students, get to take some of their labs out. They take their task list and can do it with a mentor technician out in the field. We also do a lot of community service, and that sort of falls under that industry immersion because that's like a real live, real time. This is what
Mhm.
it's like out in the real world type of experience. And of course, we have our internships. We have some of those labs that actually run completely out in industry, and in some cases, like aviation technology, entire programs. So, having and that really is the ability, for us to just pick up the phone and like talk through some of these ideas with industry because they're so our students are so in demand. And my goal was to get our students in front of industry partners that much faster, because then they could potentially, the industry partner could potentially have an employee that much faster. They don't have to wait until graduation. A student can clock in as a Johnson College student, complete their internship hours or their lab experience clock out as a Johnson College student and then clock right back in as an employee of that
Mm.
company. So it benefits the student, it benefits the industry partner, and it certainly just benefits the college overall. So yeah, those partnerships are key.
Yeah. And I love what you said about being in line having coffee because I'm like, I always joke about this. I don't know if I'm an extroverted introvert, extrovert, but I ultimately like talking to people, nice people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and mostly, I, I just think that's so because look what came from that. And you
Right.
never know. I mean,
Hmm.
I was at something with Circle 200 a couple weeks ago. You were there.
Yeah.
How I ended up being there was because I talked to the woman who was holding a blood drive where I donated blood, Megan.
Yeah.
And, we talked about that. And it's not for me to be like, look at me, but like, it's a reminder to people that even if you don't like the term networking or
Right.
mixing at a chamber or event, you can just talk to people
Right. We're all
because
human
you
beings.
don't know. Yeah, we're human beings. We have some. She was just like humoring me, letting me talk about myself, something I like to do. And she was just like, wow, this is interesting. And we got this connection
Hmm.
and I ended up giving her my business as well. So
Yeah.
you never know what you're going to be able to give to one another with
Right.
I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And obviously not just on a personal level but professional for Johnson College, it is so key. And that's how talk about a really key collaboration that you're able to get the kids the internships, the
Hmm.
students, and their jobs before they even leave. I mean, that's
Right.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always like to say, like, well, like we're all connected. We can find you talk long enough to somebody, you can find something that
Mm-hmm.
you have in common with. So yeah, those just any type of connection is key for all of us. Cause like we said, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. That's really what we crave beyond our phones.
Yeah, beyond it. We just need to be reminded because it's like just stuck to our
That's
hand half
right.
the time. Let's talk a little bit about, and I'm sorry, I did not have chance, or I didn't think I should say to Google or look up, has there been how much movement there's been as far as young women entering the trades? Because
Yeah.
I know we did talk
Yeah.
about that a couple of years ago, and it is an interest. I say every week I love to amplify the voices of women, so I'd love to see more women making these advances. More, I know young women are getting in STEM and STEAM and engineering.
Yes.
Have you noticed like the change in that going up?
Yeah, so definitely in our trade and technical programs, it's always been strong, of course, in our health science programs,
Mm,
but we have seen more women in carpentry and cabinet making, in welding, specifically a couple of female students in HVAC, quite a number of students in electrical,
mm,
quite a number of students in automotive technology, and a few female students in diesel truck technology. So, and of course, electronic engineering, technology, biomedical equipment. Those over the years, we have seen more female students in it, but those sort of core trade areas, not as much until more recently. We've also started a women in industry group. So, older, more seasoned women out in the field can connect with current students and
mm.
younger alumni, so that they don't feel so alone once they get out into industry.
And there's that connection again. And I think that's what an amazing thing,
Yeah.
because a lot of times people just, I mean, forget young people. Even at my age of 52, I have a ton of questions when I start
Right.
something new. People have questions, and some are more open or easy to ask for help than
Yeah.
others. And you're bringing these people together, and they can help one another. I mean,
Hmm.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're seeing that's awesome that you're seeing
Yeah.
that change.
Right. And we're
Yeah.
trying, and we're starting earlier. We have a wonderful after school program
Oh well.
that we run at some of the area schools. And, we're seeing more, and that's very STEM focused. So
Mm.
our goal is to attract those students because we do get a lot of female students. And we try to get it at the age where females start to lose interest in science, which is typically, research shows that it's typically around seventh, eighth grade. So we
Mm.
specifically target fifth grade through eighth grade to try to keep their interest in STEM and science and math. And so we plan on tracking that and see if that results in more females down the road
Well,
in these
that's smart.
areas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I for a second I had a thought and I forgot it. Now I got it back. So I got to That's my mind. I don't know if you were at this year's chamber conference, the Empower, I should say,
Yes.
conference. I
Yes.
just thought of the lunchtime speaker, the
Yes.
Shecanics person,
Yes.
Patrice Banks, was
Yes.
it?
Hmm.
And that just made me think of like, I love what she's doing, getting women to feel more comfortable about automotive issues. And, I mean,
Yes.
sadly for years, like, you can go in and I know myself, I paid once for $325 for a quote unquote test to see what was
Right.
wrong with my transmission that was already shot. And I'm like, son of a, but it's important for women to be empowered, whether they're going to fix their own vehicle or whether they can just say, no, that's not the case here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just fix something in their house. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just there's just such a good feeling when you can accomplish those things on your own and not have to, necessarily call somebody every time something breaks and get that, $300 bill.
Yes, yes. And for as much as I tout, women empowerment, I don't even own a drill and I'm sorry that I don't. So if you guys ever do like a course like that, I totally would love that. That would be a really great idea.
Yeah,
I
we
think
do
you'd
have
have
a
a lot of
homeowner.
women
We do
here.
have a homeowners one-on-one.
Do you?
We haven't ran it in a while, but yeah.
I need to enroll in
And
that.
Auto 80 is another one that gives everyone like the basic,
Oh, okay.
like
I can put my own washer
auto.
fluid in, and that kind of ends there. And my own gas. I put in my own gas. I'm
If hard
good.
pressed, I can change my tire. I really can.
I can't do that. I'm ashamed to say. So as we get prepared to wrap up here, I wanted to ask you, so two things that I have in my mind. Obviously, we'll close with anything that you want to talk about that's coming up, but
Yeah.
I'd like to ask, and this is something I want to start asking all the women, because I think to be where you're at, obviously you've made choices, you're human, like we talked about, you've made mistakes, but you've made great choices, that you're here and you're thriving and
Yeah.
succeeding. What's something that you would tell not just young women, because I find women even my age, we need to be reminded a lot of times our
Yeah.
own light gets dimmed for whatever reason,
Yeah.
whether it's for me perimenopause and I have depression, no joke, some days, and you forget what you have to offer. So what would you
Yes.
say to women out there, just to more or less say, you can thrive in your industry or your field, or just to give them, a piece of advice?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing that sometimes we think it's silly to follow our passion, and that it's silly maybe to be this passionate about work. I've been reflecting on this a lot recently. I've worked since I was 15 years old. My grandfather was a huge influence in that and on me. And my mom, didn't necessarily understand it. And I think, but for whatever reason, I didn't let that deter me. I just knew that I felt a certain way and that nothing else made me feel that way. And I just needed to keep pursuing that. And then, talk about a full circle moment. One of the great, going back to, Ideal Saldi and what an incredible man he was, one of the quotes, and I think we're going to put it in the building here, that, he shared at one of our golden alumni reunions, one time, was that, work gives us purpose. Work gives, and if you can align work with what you're passionate about, I mean, it's a joy to come to work here every day. Are there bad days? Absolutely. Are there days where I feel like, what am I doing? Am I, am I really, am I really capable of doing this this year, next year, for a few more years? But I think if you can just kind of keep like reminding yourself of like what your passion is, and if it changes, don't be afraid to pursue it.
Mm.
It's okay. Even if you've done something your entire life, you've got to listen to that inner voice. I sometimes I wish it was wrong, but my gut has never been
Mm.
wrong. So I guess I would say, just follow your passion, just trust your gut.
Yeah. And I think as women, a lot of times and everyone does, but I think women more so might question, like, oh, that
Mhm.
doesn't seem right. But half
Yeah.
the time I find myself, it's like, I had a funny feeling about this and I
Yes.
should have listened to that. But here we
Listen.
are. So let's not,
Yeah.
my thing anymore is let's not look behind.
Yeah.
None of us have a DeLorean to
Mhm.
go back. So let's
Right.
just look where we're at and where we're going to go forward. But, and speaking of going forward, what is next? Or, I mean, my gosh, you've done a lot since we spoke, but what is there anything else that you would want to add or say is coming up or anything like that?
Yeah. So I think, one thing I always like to talk about is just some of our special programs. I mentioned our after school programming, which we plan on expanding to 2 more schools over the next year. I just think it's so important on so many levels. But we have another special program called Rise, which is readiness and skilled
Mm.
employment. And we really look at taking, what does it mean if you take barriers away from individuals that maybe didn't have the same opportunities that you or I had throughout their life, and really help them be able to focus on getting an education and getting solid employment and a family sustaining wage, and how does that impact their life, and how does that help them with their economic mobility. So we're actually going into our fourth cohort of our RISE program. It's going to be our largest cohort. We just graduated our largest cohort with cohort 3 this past year, and just the stories coming out of there, and again how it benefits industry, because that's another group of individuals that are now have like a skill set that they can put to use immediately. But I think continuing to grow programs like that, expand our reach into some of those more rural areas to provide that access to people, that's a lot of what we're going to be focusing on over the next year or two.
That's wonderful. And I am familiar with it. NEPA Rise is fantastic.
Thank
And I've
you.
met Liz, and United Neighborhood Centers, I think, is involved in
Yes.
that. And
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful model that hopefully others will follow with, because,
Yes.
we don't all have the same, it's not a level playing field, right?
Right.
So
Hmm.
helping people with the things that keep them from, continuing education,
Right.
transportation,
Hmm.
childcare, all those things. It is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does work. I mean, we have so many success stories now, and we have really great data even on how this program stacks up to other, workforce development programs across the nation. And, it's something that we're very proud of. And again, it's all about partnerships too. That started
Hmm.
with a conversation with Mike Hanley when he was at UNC, and then, grew once Lisa became, president of UNC. And then, Terry Ohms connected us, and I knew Terry through Circle 200, and then, getting us connected to the McGowan Fund. I mean, that again, that just goes back to like the power of relationships and connections.
And that's wonderful. It really is. And it's excellent. The fourth cohort already.
I
That's
know.
great.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's wonderful. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Again, folks, make sure you check out. I'm going to post a lot of pictures. We're sitting in I should mention before we go, because this was
Yes.
like part of the highlight of my tour today. This very special conference room that Dr. Katie and I are sitting in is, I've already forgotten the name of
The
what's the
Creston
Creston.
system.
I was like
Yeah.
Luminosa, Illuminati. I was like, I don't know, Crescent Moon. I was all over the place. I apologize. It's a very cool system that you said only 4 or 6.
It's like 6 other locations across the country have a setup like this, and it was completed through one of our industry partners, Automated Lifestyles, which is a great small local company that hires a lot of our graduates. They're located right here in Moscow, Pennsylvania.
And it's pretty high tech, folks. So, I
Yes,
mean, I think it's just a testament again to the folks we do have living in northeastern
that's right.
Pennsylvania and creating. It's a really cool conference room. It's just fantastic. It kind of like it's in line, I guess you would say, with like the smart technology that it prepares for your
Yes.
meeting, gets it
Yes.
ready, the room ready for what you need,
Yes.
and it's just really wild. So it's very cool.
Thank you. Everybody visit. Come visit.
Yes, yes,
See
come
the room.
visit and see this whole beautiful building. It's really ideal. Saldi Hall.
Yes.
It's beautiful. And if you don't come
Mhm.
for a tour, I'm sure if you're driving through the area near shifts, if you need to stop for those meets, just take a look to your right, and there you
You'll
go.
see.
It's right across the street.
Can't miss
So,
us.
so thank you again, Dr. Katie, for your time. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it,
I
and
appreciate it.
I'll thank Doug offline for
That's
his
right.
help with
Thanks,
this.
Doug.
I got to tease Doug. He's a great guy.
Thanks.
So I want to thank my listeners as always. So of course, keep on listening. We'll have more great women coming up, conversations. I've got some in the works, but I'm still always looking. So again, if you know someone that you think, this woman's interesting, she has something to say, or, community leader, profession that's interesting, that's making a difference in not just in Scranton, but anywhere across the country or across the globe, please reach out to me and make a suggestion. I'd love to talk to all these interesting women every week. It's such a pleasure and a privilege. And check out the show notes. And I will definitely have some pictures of my social media and a little video of the really cool building. This is fantastic. And like I said, if you have any suggestions for guests, let me know. And if you'd like to support this content, I will. I don't like asking for help, but if you'd like to make a donation, or if you'd like to be a sponsor of this podcast, I'm so proud to say that Emily Hickox of Budget Through Life is my first paid sponsor, and she believed in the content and wants to see it continue. So reach out to me if there's anything. I'd love to talk to you about that. Otherwise, I just want to say what I always say, which is I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.